Errol Morris, Tabloid. You are dealing with a woman named Joyce McKinney, who is the ultimate example of an unreliable narrator. And I wondered, how important is it to you that she is...
By the way,
yes,
not to be argumentative.
you think she's reliable?
No, I think that all narrators are unreliable narrators. I think that, by definition, particularly narrators who are telling a story extemporaneously. I suppose you could imagine some narration crafted and vetted for so-called objectivity. But in this kind of a setting, I don't really think there are reliable narrators, which of course is what makes it interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, to say that this is a case of truth being stranger than fiction is the ultimate example. I mean, this is I swear to you, as I was watching the movie, my jaw dropped several times. Literally, my mouth was agape because I didn't believe it. You know, you move from the idea that, first of all, let's ask another question. She is. Do you think this is a love story?
Yes, clearly it's a love story. A somewhat strange love story, but a love story.
How did she meet this guy, this Mormon guy? How did she actually meet him?
I know very little more than the story that's related in the movie. The story that she tells about both her and Kirk having Corvettes and cruising past this ice cream shop. I think, to the best of my knowledge, that's what happened. Of course, Kirk wouldn't talk to me, so I never will have Kirk's version of what transpired here.
So this true love scenario has, winds up with this guy still in a Mormon sect. He's still in there with his wife and everything. He's still part of it.
Yes.
She liberated him only briefly.
Evidently.
So in you came upon this story how?
Like all tabloid stories, I read about it in a newspaper. Where else would you read a tabloid story? This was in the Boston Globe. My stories have come from all kinds of different places. Tabloid stories, properly considered, can be found anywhere, really in any newspaper, including the Boston Globe and the New York Times.
So is there just an instinct, this sort of gut reaction that occurs with you where you go, this might be good, and then you start checking it out?
Usually it's a combination of two diverse elements. I first read about Fred Lucher in the New York Times, page 1 of the New York Times. Okay? An article, Can Capital Punishment Be Humane? As I always describe it, taking the ouch out of the death penalty. Read this article. Continues on in the bowels of the newspaper, buried in the back pages. At the very end of the article, there's a brief mention, it's a line or two, that Fred Lucher was involved in Holocaust denial. Mm-hmm. And that attracted my attention. If it had just been electric chair repairman, etc., I think not. And if it had just been Holocaust denial, I think not. But the combination of A and B proved irresistible.
Now,
and that's true. That's true.
What happened in this case?
In this case, it's a similar case. I read an article about dog dog cloning in the Boston Globe, and at the bottom of the article, there's this brief mention of the possible connection with a sex and chains story from 30 plus years ago. The combination, once again, of A and B, irresistible. I don't think I would have been terribly interested in either of those stories independently, but the fact that they sat together in one story is so odd and so suggestive.
Now, did you just do a Google search right away to see what there was?
Probably I did it fairly quickly. Thank God for Google. Yeah, I'm sure I did it.
And it all came out, you mean,
Very
quickly?
soon.
I mean, you could see all the London tabloids. And
It came out pretty quickly. I called Joyce very soon after. She was in North Carolina. She was not interested in being interviewed. I called her months later in Los Angeles. She lives in Southern California. And she was interested. And so we filmed this interview in Van Nuys. We had these screenings very early on. I was putting together various rough cuts of Tabloid and show them to people. And someone complained, well, I don't really see the connection between these two stories.
what do you think the connection is?
Well, I think there is a very strong connection. It's the one line. I mean, she makes the connection powerfully when she says, "We're pregnant."
Yeah.
I think it's a very powerful.
Well, I'm fascinated
connection.
by her because she's a very attractive woman. She's a very, very talented actress. I think she would have made a great actress. Do you think that's true?
Well, she has that line, "Thank God for all those years
That's
of
right.
drama school."
Exactly. And she's, she's obviously very fanciful and everything, but what fascinates me is her own denial of the sexual history that was dug up by the London tabloid, versus when she's talking about herself and she's talking about getting together with her guy and spread eagling him and having sex with him and everything. She's as sexy as she could possibly be, and yet she's upset, and she seems to be. I mean, she seems to be virginal in a very strange way. Explain all of this
She
to
might
me.
even be virginal.
Yeah.
Or if you like, she might even be a virgin. There's something so odd about the story when Kent Gavin, the British tabloid photographer, asks Steve Moscovich, Joyce's friend in L.A., whether he ever had sex with her, and he says, no one has ever had sex with Joyce. And it almost has the ring of truth.
But she suggests that she had sex for the first time that she lost her virginity when she had sex with this guy, the Mormon.
Yes.
But you don't know whether she did or not. No one knows.
No one really knows. I mean, I suppose I'd have to ask Kirk, but Kirk is not going to talk to me.
But then she gave up sex altogether after that. That's it. That's the be all and end all.
Yes.
Trying to liberate this guy from his Mormon repression and throwing off that must have been irresistible for you too. I mean, all the details of the Mormon sect and the virgin underwear and looking all that up. I mean, look at you, it's so amusing.
It's really fantastic stuff. It really is. I mean, it's... For someone who really believes that the world is inherently crazy, this is an irresistible story. It's a really crazy story.
Now, one of the things that struck me is that you've been immersed in pretty heavy, serious movies over the past few years. You know, you were dealing with the fog of war. You were dealing with the hideous camps in Iraq and all of that. So what would be, this must be sort of liberating and fun and enjoyable for you by contrast, to get away from all that sort of heavy duty stuff and come back to your sense of humor, which has always been there.
Yeah, I also like the fact that it's one thing to do a movie that has a label on it because of the nature of the underlying subject matter. I am important. So you make a movie about Robert S. McNamara, former Secretary of Defense, probably the second most powerful man in the Johnson administration, blah, 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 blah. This is important. Or you make a movie about Abu Ghraib, or the photographs at Abu Ghraib. This is important. At least these are stories that are major stories in the news, stories that people are all aware of, and all have opinions about, I might add.